Alright, hey all, this is Farron, and we're going to finally get into some of the interesting stuff. You've noticed, of course, that sword is still there, so clearly that's not going to be next on the list. Like I said, I'm taking this from least impressive to most impressive. I'm going to say that that's going to be visually speaking, because this next one, actually it's in the perfect position, because this video is kind of split between knives and swords. This is going to be the first sword. So on the list of swords, this is the least impressive one that I own. But overall, I would honestly say, well, it's maybe not the least impressive overall of any of the blades that I have. Definitely not. It definitely isn't, less impressive than the executive letter opener. But I'm going to have to scoot this thing back again, because there's no way I'll be able to fit this thing into the video otherwise. This is Windlass Steelcraft's English boarding cutlass. Or just, I don't think they call it boarding cutlass, I think they just call it an English cutlass. I'm going to take that phone off, it's just for hanging it on the wall, which is sadly about all this thing is good for. Not to put it down, the steel quality is excellent. This is actually, I think it's 1040 high carbon steel, so it's low-end carbon steel, but it's still carbon steel. The scabbard is well made. It's stitched across the back. It does actually have a wooden core, this one does. One thing I'll point out, you could actually use the scabbard to kill somebody, because this brass end piece here is actually ridiculously sharp on the point. I don't think it's actually meant to be that sharp, or it shouldn't be, unless you were planning on using it as a weapon as well, because that thing is ridiculously sharp. I could probably drive that through somebody with no problem at all. The thread up here is fine. I will, however, point out, let me see if I can get it close enough for you to see it. Yeah, you can see it. The sword really doesn't really fit to it properly. The shape of the shell here on top doesn't match to the shape of this. This thing is just literally straight across, as you can see, whereas the shell has a bit of a curve. So what that causes is you can actually see a bit of the blade is exposed. That's not a good thing. That's actually a really bad thing. There you go, hold on. Yeah, that's actually a very bad thing, because that can promote rust. This can promote moisture drawing down the scabbard, and it can promote rust on the blade. Now, the hilt is more of, honestly, what I would call a saber hilt. I mean, I think I've seen some cutlasses that were made this way, but very few, and they were later period. The all-brass construction looks nice, but it is, believe it or not, is lighter than it would have been if it had wood in it. So it's not, I mean, for a cutlass, again, this is getting back, I think I made this point in one of the last videos, that there's no such thing necessarily as an unbalanced weapon. It depends on what the use of the weapon was, which a cutlass is made for broad, sweeping cuts. So it actually needs to be less balanced than or with a balance point that's farther from the hand. It doesn't need to have one. Personally, I still prefer it even for a cutting weapon where the balance point is closer to the hand, because it gives me better recovery time and I can make faster movements. Well, I'll show the blade first, because it's actually one of the best points of this. It's very well made, the blade is, as you can see. It's very good quality steel. It's very, very sharp. And another thing, this was ordered from Cult of Athena, which is my number one place to go to for swords. Those of you who watch Skallagrim will probably know it. It's also his number one, and there's a very good reason for that. They're the best company for swords in the world, for ordering from, at least. In my opinion, they're good prices, a very wide selection. One thing I'll note, though, is that normally you would order this from Windlass themselves or Museum Replicas. They offer their own sharpening service. Cult of Athena has their own sharpening service. And I don't know if Museum Replicas would do this, but I know Cult did. For a change from anything I've ever experienced before, the false edge right through here, and there is a false edge there, it's sharp. It is actually sharp, and you can make a back cut with it. I'm not very experienced in making a back cut at all, so I'm not very good at it, but you can cut with it. So that's nice. The point is nice. You could get a thrust with this. The blade is not too curved. Overall, it's almost straight. So you could get a decent thrust with this. It is, however, made for cutting. So, yeah, it's a better cutter. Now that we're done talking about the blade, I'll talk about more in detail about the hilt. This is why this thing is on your wall hanger. This hilt is the stupidest design. It's purely for look. It is uncomfortable as hell. If I put my hand in here, you can see, number one, first thing you see is this little rise right here. That runs right into the bottom of my hand, and this thing is tight. Now, I'll admit, I have fairly large hands. They're long fingers, big palms. These are big paws. So maybe someone with like smaller hands, maybe a woman or a small man would find this more comfortable. I don't. Neither has my dad. He actually, again, he's the one who bought this for himself. He wound up giving it to me because, and I just hang it on my wall because the blade is wonderful, but the hilt is ridiculous. It's uncomfortable. That's the first thing you notice. Second thing, the bars here on the outside, they will actually catch your knuckles. You can see how my knuckle kind of goes in between them and kind of bumps against them. They will catch that knuckle. But then there's the biggest problem. First of all, the grip is actually cylindrical. It is round. Those of you who have watched Skalagram before and have heard what he's talked about will know why that's a very bad thing. I mean, it may have a slight oval shape, but it's not enough to tell. It's mostly round. Not comfortable in the hand at all. But the worst thing is that taper. I mean, having a swell in the middle of a grip section, that's good because that fits your palm. That fits the palm very well to have a swell in the middle. But the problem is that it should just be a fairly larger swell than this in the middle, and then it goes back to the same size it was at the top. This one doesn't. It starts out here, it barely swells up here towards the top, and then it immediately starts tapering to this tiny little point at the end. What that means is that your hand cannot get a grip on it. There's way too much room down by your pinky. I can literally almost curl my pinky around to touch my palm when I'm holding this. Overall, the grip, the whole hilt is too small. It should have been sized up by about at least half an inch overall. And it's just uncomfortable in the hand because it's so small towards the end, you can't get a good grip on it. And because your hand, or at least my hand, keeps constantly running into the shell up here, and then this thing at the bottom, it's in the way, and it's very uncomfortable. Like right now I can feel it digging into the top knuckle over here. You can see where it's actually touching. It's actually run right up against the knuckle, and it's very uncomfortable, and I have no room to slide my hand down any further. The only way I have discovered to hold this weapon that makes it comfortable is to curl the thumb up over here and put it at a slight angle to get that knuckle away from that and to bring these fingers up off of that. Which, that of course throws your edge alignment off. Now I have to swing this sword in a stupid manner just to get it, comfortable in my hand. Personally, I look at this weapon, honestly, as a bit of a project sword, in a way. If I can ever get to a point where I have the time and equipment and such to do it, I intend to take the entire hilt off and try to rework it, or maybe make one of my own that I like better. Maybe make like a Messer-style hilt to put on. Now I know the biggest problem with that is that the tang for this thing is only going to be about that long. So I'm going to have to find some way to fix it up. But anything will be better than what it is right now. It is ridiculously uncomfortable. That said, I am going to do some demonstration with it. Not a lot. I'm going to use it with the buckler again, because I like doing it. I'm also going to use it with the Bowie knife. And I'm going to use it by itself. So, that will be the next video. And I'll see you guys, again, I'll probably wind up editing these videos like this one together so that they become one video. But, yeah. Alright, I'll see you. Welcome back, everyone. This is Fearon. I'm going to be demonstrating some techniques with the English cutlass from English Steelcrafts. Again, as you've already seen in the first part of this video, I'm not a fan of this weapon. I'm a fan of the blade, and the scabbard's not bad either, but the hilt is stupidly ridiculous. So these techniques are not going to look very pretty, probably, because there is very uncomfortable. In fact, what I'm going to do here to make this a little more comfortable, and I'm probably just going to keep doing this now that we're in the realm of swords. I'm going to get a glove. I'm probably just going to get both of them out here and put them on. Simply this way, because these are actual carbon steel blades, so they can rust. So I really don't want to be touching the blades with my bare hands anymore. So I'm just going to put these gloves on. I actually got these to practice fencing in. I'm also going to do a new series of videos showing off all my trainers and stuff, but that's going to be later. We're not going to focus on this. Now, admittedly, wearing gloves does make this a little more comfortable. It's a tight fit, but it is slightly more comfortable in the hand. It's still not perfect, though. It's too small overall. I don't really have any way to attach this one to a belt, so I'm just going to be showing it like this. So, what have we got here? I've got a cutlass, and the cutlasses were used in a particular manner. They were not used like fencing weapons, like a rapier. They were used actually with techniques more similar to 18th and 19th century saber fencing, which is in stances like this. Now, what is this stance good for? Well, if you come from a lower stance like this and you want to make a really powerful cut to the head or the shoulder, then what you would do is you would flip it like that. You would actually literally lift the sword into this position and then flip it around into the cut. So this just it creates a decent upward guard because it's creating a bar across your body that is probably against your opponent's sword. You could conversely do something like this if your opponent was left-handed, although this is extremely uncomfortable and it would probably be really easy for him to knock the weapon aside. Whereas with this, it's a little less so. But this also puts you halfway through that motion, so now all you've got to do to make that head or shoulder cut is just to flip it into the cut, like so. That is very uncomfortable. That is literally biting into my pinky finger every time I make that movement. Now, I will point out, though, I'm not a big fan of this kind of stance. This is extremely uncomfortable to keep this stance because it's putting a lot of pressure on this arm. I don't like high stances like this. My only high stance I really like is an older style stance from medieval fencing, which is on tag. And I don't particularly care for this kind of on tag where it's up actually beside your head. It's not bad. I'm also I don't like the sovereign guard where it's actually above your head. This is uncomfortable. I actually prefer a relaxed long tag, which is against the shoulder, which some schools will teach you not to do that. I don't particularly mind. I think it keeps the sword at a very relaxed position. You're not tiring yourself by holding it here, but you can still very quickly bring it into play as a weapon. You can even drop it down to make a thrust fairly quickly. I also like Albert, or the Fool, which you can't even see the blade in this case. It's actually down, pointed towards the floor. This is meant to be like an antagonistic stance where you're daring your opponent to come attack you. You've left yourself exposed, apparently, but you can still quickly lift the sword to deflect and then come in with a riposte, or you can also simply sidestep and lift the sword into a thrust, or a cut across the stomach or chest. So that's kind of how you use this sword by itself. You can also half sword with this blade to a degree, but it's really short. So basically the only reason why you would really want to do that is if you were blocking a blow and you needed that extra strength to push your opponent's weapon aside and line up for a thrust. Now with the buckler, basically this thing's used exactly the same way as a messer or falchion would be. So you hold the buckler out there and you cut from behind it, and again, false edge, you can make that back cut. As you're standing in a stance, let's say like first ward, and you don't want to do this big sweeping slash, you can just back cut really quickly. Now keeping edge alignment for that back edge, that false edge is really difficult. That is my biggest problem when trying false edge cuts, is because I've not practiced enough to get the alignment properly. But you can do that, and then you can sweep down and do another cut. You can also use that as a defense. You can use the spine, the blunt spine of the sword, to deflect an attack and then come in with that. You can also use it from this stance as a feint with the false edge and then step in like this. Or vice versa, you can do this and then step in on the other side. But basically with the buckler, any weapon used with the buckler, if it's a bladed weapon, it's going to be used very similarly. You're going to cut out from behind the buckler, you're going to keep your hand covered, you're going to thrust from behind the buckler, you're going to do all these kinds of movements. You're going to block with both at once. You don't just block with the buckler, you block with both. Basically, blocking the sword and buckler is the same as blocking with a sword alone. You just have a buckler there to accompany you. And then you can use the buckler to bind their weapon and hold it in place while you cut down with your weapon. Or block and thrust through, or block and cut through, whatever. So that's with the buckler. Then we've got a very interesting combination, and that is Okay. Trying to get that on there with gloves was funny. It literally, finger of the glove pinched between the hook and the cord I've got that hanging on, and when I tried to pull it away, it just pulled the buckler right off of it. But anyway, you've also got this combination. 2 blades, the buckler and the boy. Now, historically, you don't see a lot of dual swords in European fighting. There was some. It was actually, I can't remember what it was called now, but it was used, but it was rare. It was considered to be a very specialized thing to be able to fight that way. Typically, though, you do see a lot of sword and dagger or sword and smaller knife. But basically, in this situation, you're not really using both at once, like you see in movies and video games a lot, to attack. You're using one as a shield. You're basically using it just like the buckler. You're using it to parry, to block, and you're using the other weapon to attack. So with this, you kind of take stance like this, you know, and when your opponent attacks, you know, you would block and parry. That's the biggest thing. You got to parry and attack at the same time. You're using 2 at the same time like this. So you block and attack, but you do it all at the same time. So like that attack would be, say I'm holding my knife over here, I'm doing it deliberately. They're going to come in with a Zornhau to my left side because it's exposed. So I just quickly shift over and parry, and in the same moment, I'm cutting down to their leg, or I'm cutting up at their head, or you know, maybe I'm holding it like this, you know, something like this, which looks really impressive. You know, something like this, or maybe down here like this, or back like this, and I do this, and I just thrust in at the same time. Same motion, I'm just thrusting and parrying, both at the same time. You know, but the interesting thing about using a sword and a dagger is, though, as opposed to sword and buckler, you can attack with the buckler, you can hit with it, but it's a blunt weapon. This way, you've got 2 sharp weapons, so you can, adversely, if he attacks over here, you can parry and then attack with this weapon and still make a lethal blow. You know, you can parry here and thrust with this, you know, or you can block and cut. You know. And of course, you can do the Legolas thing, cut with both at once, but that's just flashy Hollywood stuff. That really doesn't work very well. You can also do a cross block like this, but generally, what you would do here is once you've made the cross block he needs to cut, this gives your opponent control over both the weapons at once. So if you stay like this, he can just push both of your weapons down and stab you through the chest or cut you or whatever. So what you do is once you make the cross block, you instantly push aside and attack. You use one weapon to push aside and attack, or you push aside and attack. You know, you don't stand there like that. You never do a static block. Static blocking is stupid. You never just stand there holding a block. You know, like if you block like this, you let the weapon slide off the back. You know, say his attack comes in like this at your head, and you block it with this. You let his weapon slide off, and you just cut around. You know, so the literal motion like that. You know, same thing here. You know, you just keep that kind of circular motion, keep your footwork going, keep moving. The only thing that stands still is a dead thing. But yeah, and again, you've also got those false edge blocks. You know, do this and run through the back. You know, or that cut. You know, there's all different kinds of things that you can do, like that. But there's a downwards cross block against like an uppercut like this. You do a downwards cross block, but you use the momentum to push your opponent's weapon aside, and then you're in the perfect position to just follow through with a cut, while keeping this weapon back here to try to keep your opponent's weapon bound up. Also, one thing I think I'm going to try and show you real quick is that binding with sharp weapons is different than binding with blunt weapons. If you bind with blunt weapons, they'll slide all over each other like this. If you bind with sharp weapons, though, they won't. The edges stick and cling. So in order to bind, you actually got to lift the weapon. So in order to bind, you just press the weapons together. But in order to wind, to get that motion going, you got to lift the weapons up to disconnect the edge, to move it, to attack down the weapon. Basically, in order to attack across the weapon, you've got to kind of press flat to flat. So you've got to go from edge to edge to flat to move the weapon. So that's pretty much all that I've got to talk about with the cutlass here. So let me go ahead and put it up. Put the bowie knife up. And put the cutlass up. Get out of these gloves. Set down under a fan so I can cool off because I'm very hot now. So I will see you in the next video where I will finally get around to showing you that other sword.